Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and yes, we are finally at that time of the month for the Scrapping for Less Flavor of the Month, May 2018 Card Kit Reveal. So let's dive in. So the bag can really tell it's all. This month's theme is in the countryside. So as always, we get 8 sheets of cardstock. 2 are white. And we also get sour apple, whipped cream, wild cherry, banana split, craft, and black licorice. And yes, the white is the Nina Solar 110 pound. Now remember, we get 4 collections in the Double Dip Sundae. So let's start with the first collection. So you get some great frames and tags by Cartabella. And that's these here. You also get your envelope because every collection gets an envelope. The stamp set you get is from Brutus Monroe called Farm Emblems. You're going to get a letter sticker sheet, a beautiful sequin packet, and of course 6 sheets. And in this case, it is double-sided pattern paper called Country Kitchen by Cartabella. And that's our first collection. So our second collection, as I try to get these out, you can tell each one is packaged individually, which is really nice. So you can either make a card right from those ingredients, or you can mix and match. Don't be afraid. So you're going to get some Down on the Farm Chit Chat. These are some die cuts, so you can use them as sentiments. Some great Down on the Farm mini icons there. An adorable stamp set by Sunny Studio, which was exclusive for Scrapping for Less, called Miss Moo. Now, the package doesn't say that, but it was. You get, again, another beautiful sequin pack, and your papers are Down on the Farm by Doodlebug. Can you tell I like the cows? Did you tell how I did that close up there? They are too precious. So, yeah, look out for the card on that. So, for collection 3, as always, again, each collection, you have your envelope. You're going to get a piece of yellow gingham ribbon. In this case, that was in my kit. You get some farm animal stickers. Your stamp set is from Scrapping for Less called Piggy Picnic. Too cute with the pigs. Another sequin pack that goes with this collection. And your paper this time is called Tiny Checks by My Favorite Things. And you get a nice range of colors. Now remember, all of these items, they may be a little bit different in your kit. So just keep that in mind, and I'll reiterate that again. So for collection 4, we get some great Farm Friends stickers. They are absolutely adorable. There's your envelope. You get a piece of black and white twine. Your stamp set is by Avery L. called Barnyard. Too cute. And your pattern paper is Farmhouse by American Crafts. And you can see this is one-sided. This was actually my favorite card pack because of the vintage feel. And then there is your sequin pack. And they have like a metallic sheen to them, so they're really pretty. Now again, those items there that I just showed comes in the Double Dip Sundae. Now, if you choose the banana split level, you get this packet along with everything else that I just showed. You're going to get a full bottle of Nouveau Jewel Drops. Now, you're either going to get strawberry, orange marmalade, or sea breeze. So in this case, I have the sea breeze. A nice piece of burlap, an adorable die set, a rooster, hen, and a chick by Frantic Stampers. They're just really cute. They are just too cute. And a real pretty stamp set, Faith Family Farming Friends by Technique Junkies. And then, of course, candy. Yay. So, again, you get all of that at the banana split level. Everything prior to that last packet, that's the Double Dip Sundae. Now, downloads are available. I will have them linked below. So, again, you get your ingredient sheet, and then you also get your sketch sheets. And these are for inspiration, and I will be using these. But again, remember, some of these items may be different in the kit that you receive. Just remember that. So let's get started. So for collection 1, I'm going to use sketch number 2. Now, I've already cut some of my pieces down, and I've cut out my stamp piece, And I'm going to go over that since I stamped it on white. I'm going to use Vintage Photo just to deaden it, deaden that brightness of the white, and then go around the edges to darken it. And again, it's just going to bring it closer to the color scheme of these other pieces. These two strips here that I've cut are 5 1/4 by 1 inch, and the back panel has been cut at 4 by 5 1/4. I did not use any of my dies. I grabbed some twine from my stash and I put that on the top of my tag, which is one of the sentiments that I'm using. So now I'm going to adhere all of our pieces together. So I'm going to use some double-sided foam tape to adhere my strips down. And I'm just going to make sure that they're firmly adhered and pushed down onto the paper. And then I'm going to set this on my grid mat so that I know that I'm lining these up evenly. These are going to go beyond my design base. You guys know me. If you've seen my videos before, nothing's hardly ever straight and always on an angle or it overhangs. It's just something that I do. But I have them positioned there, and now I'm just playing with some other positionings where the other items that I want to put on my card in their location. You know, this gave me the feel of the old-time ads where things were just layered on top of each other. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but I do. My mom actually had wallpaper, so that's probably why I remember it. So I've placed my tag down across the two strips. I've set the other stamp up in the upper right-hand corner, and now I'm going to set my other sentiment, Homemade with Love, going across, there's the angle, onto the base of my tag. And that's pretty much our design. I'm going to use my Nuvo liquid adhesive to adhere this down on my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base. And once that's set, we're going to tie a knot on top, just to gather all of those strings together, because I did use a double amount of twine there, and then I'm going to trim them. You always want to make sure you don't use your paper scissors to cut thread. You see how well it went. Once you use scissors to cut paper, use them for paper. Always try to have a pair of dedicated scissors just for your threads, and those are my blue handles. So you see me switching back and forth on them. It's going to be funny. I used a mini glue dot just to secure that string down onto my card so it's not flopping around. So for card number 2, yes, there's that paper. So I've already cut my panels just to save time because these videos get long. So the black is cut 4 by 5 1/4 and the cow print is cut 5 by 3 3/4. I'm going to use my tape runner to adhere that onto the black. I think those cows are just too precious. Absolutely precious. And I'm using sketch number 1 for this. I grabbed some cloud dies from my stash. I just saw my sentiment sitting on that. And the sentiment that I chose was called I Utterly Adore You. I just thought that was so cute. So once that's onto the cloud, we're going to set that aside so that it can dry. I also die cut another one. So now for my next panel set. The black is cut 4 3/4 by 1 3/8. And then the cow print, which is the other side of the cows, because I had to be really careful when I cut this, is 1 1/4 by 4 1/2. So I layered those together. I grabbed my Memento black ink because I'm going to be using my alcohol markers, and I want to stamp the cow down in the bottom left-hand corner of my white panel, and that's cut 3 by 3. Now, I'm not going to be able to show all of the coloring because, again, just to save time, these videos are kind of long because I tend to gab, but there will be other videos showing how I color. So I'm just finishing up my cow, putting them in the grass, and adding some accents to the grass just to make it look a little bit like more depth, So once that's done, we're going to use our tape runner and adhere that onto the blue panel there, and that's cut 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. So now we get to have the fun of assembling the card. I'm going to use my double-sided foam tape for the center strip, and I'm going to place that in the center of my design base here. And if you hear that sound, that's my cat because he feels the need to play with something while I'm doing this. He's precious, yes. I'm then going to take my focal panel and I'm going to take some double-sided foam tape on each side of it because it's going to straddle that cow print strip in the center, but I want to make sure that it's raised on the side so that it doesn't collapse if it should make it in the mail. And then I used a little bit of glue onto the cow print as well when it sits on there. I grabbed a light blue alcohol marker that I have for my stash just to go around the clouds to make them stick out. I really wanted to go with blue. I could have gone with gray, but for some reason I just grabbed the blue. I thought that they could stand out more. I glued one directly down, and then I propped the one with the sentiment up onto the card. I grabbed these sequin pack for this collection, and I want to use the blue and the white, and I'm going to fill in that one area below the sentiment that's a little bit blank there with some sequins, and then put one on the top just to add some texture and of course more dimension. And plus I had to use the sequins. So I'm using my Nuvo adhesive for that. You know, and it's funny, the section I cut out, I thought the card was done after I put the sequins on, not realizing we need to put it on our 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base. So now once we do that, now our card is finished. Yep, there's the thumbs up. So for card number 3, I'm going to use sketch number 4. So we've got a lot of panels going on here. So the main panel that everything sits on is 4 by 5 1/4. The darker green, the larger size, is 1 3/4. Excuse me, 3 by 3 3/4, and then the lighter green is 1 3/4 by 3 3/4. This panel here, or excuse me, the one that I'm putting down, that's the dark green. So again, that's 3 by 3/4, and then I'm going to put my light green on top of that. Now with sketch number 4, they show it in a portrait. I'm actually going to do mine landscape, but I'm taking the same kind of style that they have, and you can do that. This brown piece here is 4 1/8 by 2 7/8, and then the blue checkered is cut 4 by 2 3/4. So again, you don't need to have frame dies. You can also just cut your pieces and you can layer them to give them their borders and to make them look a little bit different. So let's get to the stamping. So I'm going to stamp the basket down, and this piece is cut 2 1/2 by 3 3/4. And I also stamped an image on some masking paper. This is my Inka-Dinka-Doo stamping paper, or masking paper. And I'm going to fussy cut that out. I always have problems separating this. It took me a while. That's why we had to fade here. And I'm going to set that in place. Now, whenever you cut a masked image, you want to make sure that you cut just into the lines. This way you won't have any dead space. Next, I'm going to start stamping my little piggies there, and I want them to be behind the basket. So that's why I put a mask over that basket. And of course, you can see the basket's a little bit lower so that it looks like they're closer. Now, I did a boo-boo. Yeah, boo-boo. It's a technical term in card making. When I stamped my second little piggy. But that's okay. It's not even noticeable. I'm good with it. I also stamped the sun and the sentiment, enjoy life, it's delicious. I just thought that was really cute. I did use my Memento ink because I am going to use my alcohol markers again. You can see the whole stack there. And again, edited that only because the video's long enough. But you can see my coloring there. I'm going to place that using my tape runner on top of the brown and the blue checked paper, and then I'm going to come in with my double-sided foam tape to prop that up onto my design panel. I'm also going to use a foam square for my sun because that's going to go in the upper right-hand corner of the white panel there. I used a banner die from my stash for my sentiment because I can never cut them straight. It's amazing. I can cut other things straight. I cannot cut a sentiment straight. So banners help, and I'm going to place that right up onto the top. Going to adhere this onto a craft 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 side folding. Now it's side folding card base, and I'm going to use my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive again to place that right down. I also grabbed my Nuvo glitter pen or sparkle pen, and I'm adding that to the sun, and I'm also going to add it to the cheeks of my little piggies there. And then I'm also going to grab my white gel pen because I'm going to add some 3 dots onto the cheeks just to highlight those areas. And I'm also going to highlight some areas on the red napkin that's in the basket just to give them some highlights as well. And that's our 3rd card. So our 4th card, I'm going to be using sketch number 3. And again, to save time, I just did some of the cutting ahead of time. The panel itself is 4 by 5 1/4, and those small panels that you see, their actual size is 2 1/4 by 1 inch. So I'm going to grab my foam squares and I'm going to prop them up, and I'm actually going to put them onto the left-hand side of the floral panel that I've cut. So you can see if you have the sketch printed out, or if you're going to, you'll notice they were actually centered. I just moved them off to the side. I grabbed a heart die from my stash, and I'm going to be stamping the 3 little chickies, because they are just too cute. I couldn't choose one, onto that panel. I'm using my VersaFine Black Onyx because I'm going to be using my Prismacolors to color them. The sentiment that I chose are "You are one of my favorite chicks." So I had to have 3. So after I was done all of the coloring, I'm grabbing my vintage photo again because it's always by my side. And I'm just going to ink around the edges of my heart and my sentiment. I put those on white paper. So I just, again, like I did in the first one, not as much. I just want to deaden the white. But I didn't want to go with ivory. So just by putting that on the edge, it just tones it down just a little bit. I'm going to use my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive again to put this on my 4 1/4 by my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base. And now I'm going to adhere my sentiment, as always, on an angle this time. And eventually you'll see me. I will cut off that edge that runs off the card. I grabbed the black and white twine and I doubled it up, and I eventually formed a bow. No, I would not put you through that pain. And I'm using a glue dot to adhere that down onto the base of my heart, just below my little chicks. And I'm going to trim that. You can see I grabbed my thread scissors. Now I have my paper scissors just to trim that off. I also then again grabbed my Nuvo Sparkle pen, and I'm just going to give some sparkle and shine to my little chicks, because we should all sparkle and shine. Yes. So this is the banana split kit, so we can have some fun with that. I'm using my Night of Navy Stampin' Up ink. I am in love with this color. So this piece here that I'm using is the Canson XL watercolor paper, but I'm not doing any watercoloring. But I could if I wanted to. After I stamp this image, I could bring out an aqua brush and move some of that dye ink around if I wanted to, because it is water reactive. But I love just the way that looks there. The reason why I chose a Canson XL watercolor is the texture and the color. Now, this panel here is actually, and I did use one of my frame dies from my stash, and I'm using the vintage photo to ink around it. That one is white. But since it's being covered by this burlap, because once I have that folded over, I'm using a very strong double-sided tape, not foam tape. If you've seen any of my other videos, it's the double-sided tape that I use when I want to make a glitter panel by using loose glitter. That's the tape, and that's not going anywhere because that tape is awesome. I'm also going to ink around the edges of this, but because I don't have to go too heavy with it, because the Canson XL watercolor already has a cream look to it. I do like the cream color in watercolor paper. I just like the look that it provides. I used some double-sided foam tape, and I'm really pushing down over the burlap to make sure that that's going through. And I pushed that down onto the right-hand corner, so I've got these two separate panels on my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base. I'm using the Nouveau drops, and I'm just placing some of those around as a nice accent to the blue ink that I used. Now, since I used one of the drops on top of the eye in Family, that drop actually goes a little darker because it's picking up the ink, because the ink, again, is water reactive. And that's that card. Very simple. So think about that. You can do that with any of your stamps. So, surprise, we have a 6th card. Did you know that when it comes to these card kits, Scrapping for Less provides add-ons? This is one of the add-ons that will be available. It's by Brutus Monroe. And, of course, I'm looking for it. There it is. It is called Bountiful Botanicals. And this stamp set matches perfectly to some of the pattern paper that's in the kit. In fact, it was my favorite pattern. Well, my second favorite pattern paper. It's because it's not the cows. I'm using my stamp positioner, and this is Canson XL watercolor and my VersaFine ink to stamp these two images down. And I'm going to use my clear embossing powder to heat set this. I've pulled out my Derwent Inktense pencils, and that's what I'm going to use to color. So I'm just grabbing some colors here to match up to the pattern paper that's going to be part of this card. So, scratch piece of watercolor paper there playing around with. So what I can do, since they're pencils, I can just apply a very light coat. Don't use a heavy hand. Just put your pencil down lightly. Now, these are not like other watercolor pencils. These are ink. So this is a little bit different than others. So these are very intense, hence the name. So you do get a lot of color. I always keep a towel that looks absolutely horrible. I need to wash it. Off to the right of me, because I will dab off on that to get rid of some of the water. So that is our colors. And this is the pattern paper. I think it matches beautifully with it. So I grabbed one of my scallop dies from my stash, and I'm going to cut that on the edge, and that's just going to sit on the side. So you can see I've got the blue, and I pulled in the darker coral color from the kit, and then of course, or the paper, and of course the greens that we've got there. I'm going to use a strip of double-sided foam tape to adhere this to this panel. And I did use a frame die from my stash, but that frame die measures 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to set that in place, and I do want it to just overhang a little bit. I'm going to trim this up. I use my long shears to do that. Now that I can cut a straight line with. And then I'm going to add another piece of pattern paper on that. I mean, you could leave it just like that, but I'm going to add the blue and the white checks, or line, plaid paper, I guess you could call it. And I'm going to adhere that directly down onto that, but we can still see that the floral pattern coming out. For my sentiment, I'm going to use one of the die cuts from the kit that says Home Sweet Home. So again, you can see with these add-ons, you can still use all of those pieces that you receive in this kit. It's really versatile. That's what I like about it. You can create lots of different things. I'm going to set that down along the bottom, I didn't want to set it on the top. I think the card would have been filled too much, but so that's why I chose the bottom of it. But you can see it really does match. It's a beautiful stamp set. I hope you take the time just to look at it, check it out, and yeah, maybe buy it. It's a good one. It's a good one for the stash. I set this on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base, and I'm going to pull in those Nuvo drops again. And what's great is since I put them over these dots where I put yellow, they actually turned a very pale shade of green. Because again, Inktense, they're water reactive. This card was not harmed in this video, but I do like to tap my cards gently just to flatten out those Nuvo drops just a little bit. So this is the recap of the cards that we made today, and I surprised you with one more. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that thumbs up. You see that subscribe button down there. If you haven't already hit it, please do so. I'd love for you to be just my little part of the YouTube community and the creativity that we can do here. If you have any questions or comments, I encourage you, please leave them down below. I love reading them. I love communicating with you guys. I think your questions are great and helpful for me sometimes. Sometimes you guys give me, a lot of times, you guys give me some great tips. I hope you'll take the time. All the links will be down in the description for Scrapping for Less. I hope you take the time to check out this kit. It is a wonderful kit at a great value. Again, check out those add-ons. They're really interesting, and they do coordinate really well with the kit. Also, check out their online shop as well. They have some wonderful products for all of our crafting needs and everything that we could ever want. I hope everyone's having a great day, but always remember, because this is most important, always be creative.